Yes, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Let's have a chat this morning about what's happening with Manchester United's owners, shall we? There has been some news kind of popping off over the last few days. It seemed to me like there was a lot of lies earlier in the week, and maybe people guessed on something, and it seemed to just be nonsense outlets that were putting stuff out there. And I made a few calls to people that I trust, journalists that have got actual connections and integrity, and everyone seemed to be like, I'm not really hearing too much at the moment. Now, some of those journalists have actually started to cover the takeover news in the last few days, but there's a hell of a lot of confusion about exactly who might be in front. And earlier in the week, it seemed to be like all of the nonsense outlets were saying that Sheikh Jassim has completed the deal and is days away from it being announced publicly, even though it might still take 2 weeks to complete. And you're like, okay, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But then when you spoke to some of the people, and I think it's important to state the source of some of these people, when you speak to some of the people linked closely and locally, they seem to be thinking that actually Jim Ratcliffe might be someone that is leading the charge at the moment. And you go, okay, is that because he's more accessible for a leak or a quote, or I don't know, So I'll read the reports and then we can get into whether we think anything's actually happening or not. So first up, Bloomberg. Now, Bloomberg for me is somewhere that I trust when it comes to what's going on in the business world, above the tabloids and even the sports media. And I take it on board with what they're saying. And they've said Jim Ratcliffe has emerged as the favourite to take over United, with his recently revised offer giving him the edge over the Qatari proposal. Discussions with the Glazer family and their advisors are ongoing about the structure of this deal. The Glazer family currently considered his offer for a minority stake attractive and more attractive than the Qatari offer for the entire club. The board is expected to discuss the proposal at a meeting in the coming days. Discussions with Jim are ongoing, and it's uncertain whether this will result in a transaction, but the Glazer family is closer than ever to finding a suitable arrangement. The situation remains open. So that seems to add up with me, at least, in terms of some of the conversations I was having, with, like I said, with people that I trust earlier in the week, that they seem towards that it actually feels like it might be a Jim Ratcliffe's kind of situation. I think Jim Ratcliffe, if that is the case, is going to struggle to win over the fan base, because all you've done is essentially lend the Glazers a little bit more money. And it might not actually be lending them a little bit money, but the optics of it looks like you've just lent them a little bit of money and you've got in bed with them. Now, on some people's front, and I have seen this in defence of Jim Ratcliffe and in the interests of neutrality, because I don't necessarily have a dog in the fight, whether it's Qatari or Jim Ratcliffe owned. I think neither for them are ideal for Manchester United, but I think we're going to get one of them. I think the three options on the table, it stays as the Glazers, it's Jim Ratcliffe, or it's a Qatar owned bid. I think all three of them come under much of a muchness. And yes, I think going off what's out there publicly that this isn't owned by the state of Qatar, I have my suspicions that it is. Okay? So out of all those three options on the table, the most palatable one to me probably would be Sheikh Jassim. But that comes with a whole load of caveats that I'd rather not be owned by a state. And even people can argue by it, say, well, it isn't actually owned by a state. Well, it feels like it's owned by a state to me, right? Right or wrong, that's how it feels, and that's how it will be portrayed by everybody else. That's thingy. I think in terms of what I think would be the most successful thing for Manchester United, I think it probably would be the Qatar bid. I can't wrap my head around how Jim Ratcliffe changes anything at the football club when he has such little input and power. It feels like it's just giving the Glazers a little bit more money, and then that would just lead to them spending most of that on debt, very little of it on infrastructure, and ultimately won't be... I ultimately don't think it will elicit the sort of fundamental change of direction and refresh that Manchester United need, an injection of ambition that Manchester United need to actually compete with some of the biggest names in world football. I don't think that happens if the Glazers are still in any way involved. That's my opinion. According to business, the Glazers are closer than ever to finding a suitable arrangement for the investment/takeover, and the United board are expected to discuss Jim Ratcliffe's new proposal in a meeting in the coming days. Ben Jacobs says Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim remain in talks to buy United. Sources do indicate Ratcliffe has finally made progress, but an improved Qatari bid cannot be ruled out. Mike Keegan from the Daily Mirror says that discussions are also continuing with Sheikh Jassim's team. I'm going to get into the questions and see what some of you guys think, but that's the news at the moment. It's dragged on so long, we're all a little bit bored of it. And what looks like the biggest possibility at the moment is no change. How have we gone this far, discussed it this much, and nothing changes? Ryan says, Steve, are Rashford and Bruno problems for Ten Hag's style he wants to play? Both patchy players in good systems, but in Ten Hag's fluid possession heavy tactic, they suit counter-attacking, in my opinion. It's not as binary as that, and no, I don't. I think the fact that you saw Bruno create the most chances last season and Marcus scored 30 goals, I think it's absolutely ludicrous to suggest that they are a problem. Now, if you wanted to say, I think we'd be better suited to having X or Y in those positions going forward, you might have a point. But ultimately, I think that those two players are not problematic. I think it's ludicrous to suggest it, and I don't know who is putting this out there as reality. I think they're misguided at best, and I think there's probably an agenda behind them at worst. I think United's problems are not Bruno and Rashford. I think if you've got better players in different areas of the team, you get the best out of those two players who are the most productive. Didn't they contribute 70% of United's goals last year? Yeah, fuck it, get rid of them. Let's see what happens. Let's enjoy the championship next year, shall we? Abhinav says, I'd rather have players with personality than beige players that play under Arteta. The Mighty Eye says, I'm sure the Glazers will leave easily in 5 years with absolutely no issues at all. Do you know what I mean? Capo Die says, it's ludicrous to suggest they'd do it again. It's not really, is it? Wayne says, Ten Hag getting shit from some supporters is pathetic. He's juggling plates with the injury situation. I mentioned it on In Off the Bar yesterday. The fact that the entire defence is missing, the fact that you've got the carnage you've got at right wing, the fact that you've got Casemiro out of form, you've had Mason Mount injured, you've the issues that you've had in terms of like bringing Amrabat into the team. It's October and he's not really managed to start 2 games in the centre of midfield for us just yet. Like, these are huge issues that any other club would be rocked with. And yes, we've lost a lot of games in a short period of time, but I think it will be turned around and I think we'll end up finishing quite strong, but it's one of those, isn't it? Abhinav says, I think Ponytail Baldyface is a greedy bastard and the other family members are ready to move on. This isn't being close to being resolved. Someone has to pay $7 billion. You might be right. Thoughts on Scott McTominay's disallowed goal? I don't see how that gets brought to VAR. It's not a clear and obvious error. If there's a foul, and it's a big if, because honestly, it's not a foul, is it? If there's a foul, it's not mental that they missed that. It isn't like it's like I don't know that. The Amazon talking machine is piping up in the background. It's not such an obvious thing that you have to go, wait, we need to correct that because it was so obvious we shouldn't have got it. It was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It was changed from a foul to offside. Okay. Hang on, where was the free kick taken from? Was it not? No, it probably was further out than from where the... I'm going to say, did it not go backwards? It might have been level, but yeah, it probably was a bit further out than that, wasn't it? Luno says, may it be any ownership, does that guarantee success? How... You might say better players on paper. Do we not have the best of players? There's a lot more when it comes down to being successful as a football club. I think players are important, but the environment that the players are in is probably almost as important. Like, you put great, like genuinely world-class players in the Championship with no changing rooms and no training facilities, and they'll probably get out of the Championship, right? But ultimately, you get the you get more juice out of the fruit if you've got a better environment for them. If you've got an ambitious environment where people are trying to make things happen, that helps. Like, it's not just about buying players. It's about, is the analysis up to speed? Are you recruiting the right players? Like, you can buy good players, but are they the right players for the system that you're trying to play? The reason Brighton have been successful is they found a manager that suited how they wanted to play, brought him in and give him the players that can play the way he wants to play. You know what I mean? Notch says, yeah, UEFA confirmed that the goal was offside. Oscar says, does investment in Carrington and new facilities potentially reduce future potential injury problems? Of course, yeah. If you've got better people managing the load, if you've got better facilities, if you've got better medical facilities, of course it could help to reduce potential injuries, of course. Thoughts on Rooney at Birmingham City? We shall see. Is the plan in fact, I think that's supposed to say, definite for Jim to go in with 25? Everyone's under NDA, so we're only assuming, aren't we? Richard says, if I was managing Onana, would I take him out of the firing line for a bit or keep going with him and hope he turns it around? That's a really good question. Both are potentially right, aren't they? And ultimately, it's only the result that's going to determine whether that was the right decision or wrong decision. Both of them have pros, both of them have cons. The cons to keeping him in is that his confidence could get worse before it gets better. And the cons to taking him out is that it could really decimate his confidence, that everybody acknowledges that he's not been good enough. I don't think he's been as bad as people are making out. And that's not to say he's been good, but I think people have really overcooked how bad he's been. He's not making mistakes worse than even like Raya and Ramsdale at Arsenal, but the team is scoring goals at the other end of the pitch, or they're limiting the amount of shots. In fact, I'll tell you exactly how many shots Arsenal have faced as a club. Versus Manchester United. You see the difference. So this obviously is Premier League, and it's also so it covers both the goalkeepers. Let's have a look. In fact, if we sort it by number of saves, 27 saves. So the most saves made in the league is 45 by Sheffield United, then it's 35 by Wolves, 33 by Bournemouth. Liverpool have actually made 29 saves. United have made 27. Arsenal have made 10. So Onana's had to make 3 times the number of saves as as Arsenal have made. Shots on target against 37. Shots on targets against Arsenal 16. So when you say, well, what's going on? Why are we conceding goals? This is why. This is why. They've had games where they've had so minimal amount of shots in there. And United's... I was looking at Liverpool's there. So United have had 38 shots on target against, not 37, and made 27 saves, not 29. United's save percentage, 68.4%. Arsenal save percentage, 62.5%. Yes, there's been some clangers, and I freely admit there has definitely been some clangers, but it's been over-egged how bad he's been. Akash with a super chat there, thank you very much, brother, says, do I think Bruno is suffering because he's trying to plug holes in centre mid when we can't progress the ball from defence, or shifted to the right because of the right winger situation and trying to make chances, too many asks at once? Yeah, I think that's a feasible sort of reasoning for why certain things are happening with Bruno, yeah. And I think like Marcus's first few games where he played as a 9 and he was awful have probably impacted people's sort of rating of how he's been overall. And they've definitely affected his confidence. So it's one of them, I think, isn't it? David says, expected goals against. I don't know, actually. Let's see what that... let me just have a quick look. See if I can pull this up. Expected goals against. United are 12.22 and we conceded 12. Arsenal are 7.85 and conceded 6. So Arsenal are a little bit ahead of theirs. Let's have a look who's the best and worst in terms of that. So Burnley by a long way. It's interesting, isn't it, with the keeper that they paid how much for? Burnley's expected goals against is 15. They've conceded 20. There's not really many big swings in there. Liverpool should have conceded 12, have conceded 9, so Alisson's doing well there. Crystal Palace expected goals against 10, and they've conceded 7, so they've pulled out a little bit there. Yeah, United are basically on what they should have conceded in terms of XG, so it's not mental. It really isn't mental. Dan says, as I'm such a United fan who's in tune with the history and traditions of the club, how can the idea of Qatar state ownership be justified, in my opinion? It can't. But I didn't want the Glazers. They've been here 18 years. I think sometimes you just have to understand you can't do fuck all about it. And I think looking at the options on the table, is it more justified to maybe see the club have a little bit of ambition against the principles of the club? Or is it to see the principles of the club eroded by the way we run under the Glazers anyway? Kurt says, morning, really hope you're well. Really enjoyed the Paddock FC video a few days ago. That's going to be every 2 weeks. So if you do have any questions, go check that video out and let me know what's going on. KFA Posse, do I agree? It'll take another 4 to 6 windows to become a challenge. No, I don't think it does. I don't think it does take that long. I think you could do it in another couple of windows, in all honesty, if you get the right signings and clear the right people away. Robert says, don't I remember a couple of years ago when Liverpool fell off and every media outlet bemoaned their injury numbers? Where's that for United? It doesn't sell, does it? So that's the problem. Kurt says, morning. Oh, yeah, I'm saying that one. John says, McTominay played as a striker as a youngster. Should he get a shot up top? He didn't really. He played there in one season. He wasn't a striker. He was a midfielder played out of position. He wasn't a striker. Alex says, it's Birmingham versus Middlesbrough, the race for the Premier League, but Rooney versus Carrick, the battle for next United's head coach. Far too early to say on both fronts, I think. Jack says, does Beckham being positive vocally on the Qatar bid increase the chances of? No, because I think ultimately it's down to the Glazers who they want to sell to. That's why I don't understand the PR front at the moment. I think I understand if you wanted to go full frontal on the PR offensive, that makes a lot of sense to me. But maybe do it when you win. What's the point in doing PR now to lose the bid? You don't need the public favour for the bid. You need to convince the Glazers for the bid. That's what you need to do. Because it doesn't matter what you do with PR until you get the club. Yeah, go fucking nuts on the PR once you get it. Get David Beckham involved. But it doesn't matter if David Beckham can be out here fucking writing it on his sausage for all anyone cares, saying fucking Sheikh Jassim for MUFC. I mean, I don't know how long he's schlong. It's probably not long enough for that. But it doesn't matter if he just decides to sell it to Jim Ratcliffe because that's what he's up to. Ava says, Onana's declining confidence and mistakes can't be helped with a change about 4 every other game. Agree. Brian says, if Onana has our first choice defence in front of him for a few games, he'll be all right. I agree with that one. Matty I says, golden chopper. Fire says, good morning, Steve. Love what you're doing. What are my views on Israel looking to invade Gaza in 24 hours and telling the 2.2 million Gazans to leave in 24 hours? I covered it, I think, fairly eloquently the other day, and I don't think there's anything else I can add to what I've already added. I don't understand where the people of Gaza are going to go, though, because aren't all the borders closed? Isn't there checkpoints everywhere? I could be wrong on that. I don't know enough to comment on every single nuanced part of what's going on with Israel and Gaza. I don't think I can comment on every single action of this. that's going on. People know my feelings. Those feelings will not change. So go and watch that video is all I would say. From about 20 minutes in, I think we do about 20 minutes on it, and I'm not going to improve on what I've said there or change what I've said there. Jack says, is this all spin for Qatar to increase the bid to 7 million? Maybe. Keith says, don't know who is winning, but I know as a club and we as supporters are losing. I would agree. Asim says, all we need to do as fans is sit tight, back the manager, stick together, and love United 8 Glazer. Favour says, I want Sheikh Jassim to win. Cass says, people seem to forget that Portugal are a possession-based team and Bruno has been their best player for 3 years. David says, the way forward is a complete buyout. And Exit Light says, it's not Jassim, it's fucking Qatar. See, mate, you're fully entitled to that opinion. And honestly, I believe that... there's probably a lot of truth to that, but you can only go off what's being reported at the moment, and what's being reported is that technically it's not even Sheikh Jassim, it's the 9-2 foundation of which Sheikh Jassim is either the chairman or the head of, something like that. So it's one of them, innit? Like, we can have our assumptions, but you have to be accurate. Yassine says, nobody is winning. The Glazers think they are, but what's looking like a poor season for us will surely devalue the club. Also, another year older for the stadium and the training ground. Fire says, is there a way United could go majority fan ownership? Listen, yes, I believe there is. I think it's extremely unlikely, and it might require the club to almost go tits up. I think the time for United to become fan-owned was probably post-Murdoch. And because that's not happened, I think now that the club will be so prohibitively expensive for whoever comes to bring in, you're looking at literally a handful of... you're literally looking at a handful of super billionaires that might be able to get involved in running a club. And does that mean that there could be some sort of fan initiative later down the line? Maybe. But oh my days, is it talking about some real benevolent individual that goes and decides to sell 49% of the club back to the fans? That's a mad one for me. Phil Berry says, I'd take Barry Chuckle if it got rid of the Glazers. What was the Chuckle brothers' jobs? Were they handymen? Were they handymen? I think they were handymen, right? Did I hear Charlie Savage saying that the Reading training ground's on par with United's? No. And good for Reading, but that's shite for United, innit? Would I ever join Macola on the club? Probably not, because they do join live stream games, and I don't really like doing watch alongs. I invariably would probably rather just go to the game. Shaq says, at this point, don't give a fuck who wins, but anyone but the Glazers, and an end to this joke of a takeover saga. I think a lot of people will get behind that one. What do I think about Old Trafford being excluded from Euros 28 venues on show? An indication as new owners, as reports say it's due to the ground being redeveloped. I don't think it's the ground necessarily being redeveloped. I think it's probably because it's in a state of disrepair. And you've got the Etihad that you can use, which is newer, and all the rest of it. Yeah, they were handyman, says Heavy. Can I do a top 5 worst pundits? Ooh, who's your top 5 worst pundits? Who's your go-to worst pundit that's in there? I feel like Martin Keown. I don't know why he's one of the first ones I want to throw in there. Michael Owen. I'm trying to think who really riles me up. Steve McManaman's voice angers me. Is Gabby Agbonlahor, is he a pundit? Richard Keys, yeah. Souness for sure. I don't understand why the Liverpool ones are allowed to be Liverpool fans and everybody else has to be neutral. I don't get that. Chris says, Ali McCoy. I find myself quite enjoying Ali McCoy. Craig Burley, 100%. Vladimir says, do I think Old Trafford will be fixed up or build a new stadium, or neither if the bastards stay? Probably neither if they stay, but I'd always prefer us to keep Old Trafford where it is. Like, I don't want to see that knocked down. And yes, maybe you can build a better stadium, but I think there's too much history with it, and I'd rather us redevelop rather than knock down. I love the fact that that pitch in that orientation, and even the South Stand tunnel is the original tunnel. I love that. I love those features of the ground. I love that the fact you can sort of still recognise Old Trafford when you see it. You see documentary footage of the Babes. You see Matt Busby walking across the East Stand car park, and you see that sort of angle of the ground from the bridge. And I love that. In fact, you can kind of still see that when you go to Old Trafford right now. Yes, the sort of right-hand side is now covered in glass, and it's like twice as high because of the extension to East Stand, and obviously North and West Stand. But I love the fact that you can go stand on the bridge and you can see the same stadium evolved from the same location. I love the fact that that's the place that my granddad went to in 1950. I love the fact that it's the place that my dad went to in 1965. I love it's the place that I went to in 1990. I love the fact it's the place that my son went to in 2007. I love the fact that it's all the same place. You know what I mean? Jack says, isn't it ironic that Jay's made me start taking drugs again? What? I think we need more. You're gonna have to develop that story for me a bit, please, mate. Kumar says, what's with Maguire and his ego after 2 games start talking and he gives statements like this? I don't know. It's tiring though, isn't it? Scott says, truth about Nana is he's had a nightmare start of Taibbi-sized fuck-ups. I disagree. I do agree with the fact that Kovar's doing bits and it didn't make sense otherwise. Joe Diego says 14 wins in a row for Maguire. Okay, but are they for Maguire? Right, this is the sort of bullshit analysis. Gareth Bale lost his first, I think, 26 games. Right? What does that tell you? Nothing, does it? Right? Because Gareth Bale was an all-right footballer, I think it's fair to say. Is it 14 wins for Maguire? Is that in starts? Does that show, like... I had a look yesterday, and I got to admit, it was a fairly quick look, so I might have missed a game here, but I'm pretty sure he had his first win in October, and his second win didn't come till January. Then he played a load of games. Who are those starts against? Like, who are those starts against? And half of them for England against fucking bin men. Fuck's sake. That's just the shittest analysis ever. Oh, he's won 14 games in a row. Oh, give him the fucking Ballon d'Or then, shall we? Wow, what a hero. Fuck's sake. How many of them have been won because of him? Is that 14 straight starts at United? Is that because he only starts in games that we're already expecting to win? Soccer Base doesn't tell me. Oh, hang on, it does. So he played against Brentford, Palace, and Palace. No, he didn't play against Palace. So he didn't start against Palace. Not the loss anyway. So Palace in the cup, Brentford at home, right? Came on late for the Arsenal loss. And then, so that was what, 3? And then I'm assuming Fulham, last day of the season. Yep. Wolves. No, came off the bench for Wolves. Villa. Came off the bench for Villa. Well, see, your fucking stats are all bollocks because he started against Sevilla, which was less than that many games ago. So unless you're talking Premier League only, and then you're having so many fucking caveats that your stats are all of all bollocks, innit? We lost 3-0 to Sevilla and he started, which was at most 5 starts ago. So no. They start against Forest. We started against Forest when we beat them. Didn't start in the draw against them. Started against Everton when we won 2-0. Started against Fulham in the FA Cup. Started against Betis in the league. Started against West Ham. Didn't start against Newcastle in the EFL Cup. Started against Leeds. Started against... Do you know what I mean? What a load of old arse that stat was. He deserves a run now. No, fuck off. Are you just being a troll? You don't? Yeah, you are, aren't you? Right, fine. Abhinav says, did I not see Maguire give a rousing team talk when United about to go into extra time in the FA Cup semis before penalties? Oh, wait. Right, so Prem, FA Cup and Carabao domestic only. Fuck off. What do I make of Scholes saying Gerrard was better than him? Scholes' default is self-deprecation. He's never going to say that. He's never going to say, yeah, I'm absolutely better than him. It's not his personality to show off, is it? So it's just ridiculous, isn't it? Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Cheers for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you lot in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.